So that is a quarter of a million people suddenly coming on the market and going, hey, the typical companies that I might bounce to from a Meta to an Amazon to a Google, for example, they're now not hiring.
Do you need hard skills to be a great B2B marketer? Welcome back to a fresh episode of Breaking B2B. I'm your host, Sam Dunning, founder over at breakingb2b.com. So joining me today, I've got Adam Harrison. Adam is the SVP of marketing over at Weavr. They're a fintech based in the UK. Adam, welcome to the show. How are we doing?
Very good, Sam. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Excited to dive in. It's our first guest episode we've done for a while. So looking forward to a bit of banter, a bit of debate. So we're going to be diving into B2B marketing. Do you need hard skills in today's SaaS B2B marketing landscape? We're going to be talking a bit about what we feel it's like being a B2B marketer 2025 and beyond at the time of recording, what we actually mean when we say hard skills from a marketing perspective, differences between soft skills, people management, hard skills, what it's like compared to working at a startup and the contrast to working at kind of mid-market and enterprise level orgs, and also diving into our 2 cents when it comes to folks that may be at the early stage of their marketing journey who want to eventually work their way up the ladder to director level or similar. So with that said, what do you feel the state of play? What do you feel it's like being a B2B marketer in today's world?
I think one of the overarching things at the moment is that there's a lot of pressure on all businesses out there, right? And so particularly as a B2B marketer, you're feeling that in terms of greater pressure to be able to prove the value of what your marketing is producing, right? That's always been super important, but when the funding environment for your company is a little bit tough, or when you're hearing about layoffs at large companies that you may be working at or your friends are still working at, it just applies a lot of pressure. I think we're also facing tons of opportunity in the form of innovation coming our way, be that one of the AI tools and gizmos that we get super excited about, or others. So we've got tons of opportunities to do much more with less people and more tools, and we're also feeling that pressure on our back to be able to do that, right? Because we have to turn A into B, and the climate right now is a little bit tricky.
I agree. Are you tired of competitors ranking above you on Google, stealing traffic, leads, and mindshare from dream clients every time they're searching for your services or offers on Google? At Breaking B2B, we fix that with our unusual approach to SEO, content marketing, and websites. We craft B2B SEO strategies and websites for revenue, not vanity. Head over to breakingb2b.com to check our results, pricing, or to book a call with me. I agree. It feels similar. So it feels like on one side, there's a bunch of tech companies hiring like crazy. But on the other side, I've only got to scroll the LinkedIn feed and I can see that marketers are looking for work or companies letting folks go. So it does feel like it's a bit kind of all singing, all dancing one end and then despair the other.
Yeah, 100%. And everybody's jumping on the AI bandwagon, right? And that seems to be where all of the fun is at the moment.
Yeah. So diving into the topic, when we say hard skills for a B2B marketer, in your opinion, what does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, for me, hard skills have always been, can you actually do the craft as well as talk about the craft and pontificate intelligently in the right rooms about the craft as well? So if we think about B2B marketing, specifically if you're working in a smaller company, such as a startup or a scale up, in my case specifically, that's where I am at the startup size, hard skills are, can I build that LinkedIn campaign? Do I know my way around HubSpot? Can I figure out how to do that social media ad myself, as well as manipulate the data and come up with the insights and all those things that if you're in a bigger company, you may have people who do that for you, or all the tools that do that for you. And it becomes more about talking about what the marketing team does, drawing the link between what the marketing team is doing and the KPIs that the business really cares about, whereas the hard skills are doing the do, should we say.
Getting it done.
Getting it done.
It's a tough balance, really. And do you think, this is a high level question, but these days, do you think as a B2B marketer, especially with AI being able to certainly speed up a lot of workflows that traditionally took a long time, do you think it pays off more to be a generalist that knows, like you mentioned there, a little bit about LinkedIn ads, maybe can get a Google Ads campaign running, can do some retargeting, can set up a HubSpot instance, and can do these kind of core things, maybe knows a little bit about WordPress or Webflow, has a good general understanding of core things, opposed to someone that's, I don't know, all in on events marketing, or all in on demand gen, or all in on SEO or paid media? You think there's pros and cons to each, or where do you sit on that standpoint?
I think it depends really about obviously the role you're in and the size of your company. Typically, like a very broad strokes, if you're working at a bigger tech, generally you're becoming more specialized in what you're doing. You're working in one channel, you're working on one product, or you're just working on one audience and doing a few things with them. Versus when you are working in a startup, generally you need to be a generalist, right? So you've got to do the email, the reporting, the ads, the campaigns, research, what have you. You've got to do all of that. So it really does benefit you to be a generalist if you're in a smaller size company. But typically also, I think if you're in a smaller company, you also need to have T-shaped depth in an area too. So I'd always call myself a generalist marketer, but T-shaped depth in digital, be that paid advertising or understanding how digital stuff works. And then also in campaign ideation, coming up with creative ideas. And that's just kind of what the skills were that I gained from big tech, and I brought them down to a startup. So I think the answer is depends on the role, depends on the company. It's always good to have depth in an area, regardless of where you are.
I feel like certainly if you rewound back kind of to 2020, when everything went digital, if you were a field marketer or events marketer or something like that, and that was all you doubled down on and that was your craft, you would have been pretty crushed, certainly for a couple of years.
Crushed in what way?
In the sense that if that was all you did and then those roles got taken out, i.e. there weren't events going on in the pandemic, I feel that could have been, obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing.
It is, I mean,
business, but it's just one example that comes to mind.
It is, and they're unfortunately quite often the first roles that go, right? PR and marketing budgets get slashed first, and when you think about it for marketing, typically it's events are ones that go quite quickly as well. It's hard, right? So I think the phenomenon that we're seeing really right now is that no longer is it just layoffs happening in startups, which was always the typical story. Startups fail or they need to adjust downwards in size. We've seen that over the last few years, that this is happening to big tech, which was the safe and cushy environment to be in for years and years and years. Fully stocked fridges, nice kitchens, good salaries, great pension, all the benefits. Suddenly, shock horror, they started making layoffs. And I think there's a stat that I saw in 2023 that there was 262,000 layoffs in big tech in that year alone. So that is 250,000 people suddenly coming on the market and going, hey, the typical companies that I might bounce to, from a Meta to an Amazon to a Google, for example, they're now not hiring, and I'm good at doing events. So how do I brush my CV up and actually figure out what I can do, and how might that slot into a scale up or a startup who do need marketing skills, but actually they need more than that very deep depth that I've got in just one area.
Yeah, that's a mad stat. So we've talked a bit about being more of an all-rounder. How would you say on the flip side, on the people management side, not necessarily just people management, but dealing with execs, dealing with layers in the management team, presenting cases, working with folks, maybe working with external agencies as opposed to quote unquote getting your hands dirty with tactics and strategies hands on? How would you say that kind of compares and what the main differences are?
I mean, the obvious one, if we're talking about, being a people manager versus like a practitioner marketer, the practitioner marketer is doing those things that we were just talking about. They're jumping into their channel that they own. They're building those campaigns, they're doing the reporting, they're getting the assets, that kind of thing. So all of the hard skills are on display. Typically, in a marketing team, they're thinking about the marketing metrics and they're thinking about the KPIs that relate to their channel or the project. It's typically in the marketing sphere, right? But then when you are moving up into a people management role, again, it depends whether you're in a huge company or a small company. Typically, you're orchestrating more and you're optimizing team performance, and that's what you're trying to get your team to be in the best shape to have the biggest impact. And then outside of your team, it's about aligning with broader activities in the company. So quite often working with the sales team, might be working with the product team, and gaining influence in those teams to make sure that your team has not got blockers in front of them to be able to do what they need to do. So it's a different skill set entirely, really, from being a hands-on practitioner pushing buttons to somebody who's in a people management role. And another really important aspect of that is if, in my position, for example, my job is to translate what marketing does into the metrics that the C-level and the board care about. They're not coming to me asking about CPCs or CTRs or impressions or things like that. They care about pipeline, deals, ARR. What are the metrics that marketing can actually move for them? They're the problems they want solved, and marketing needs to be able to solve them. So it's my job as that people manager running the whole ship to be able to create that link to prove, marketing's worth to the organization, strategic advisor, not the people who are in the coloring department or making things look pretty, which is something we do too. So that's a few of the differences.
How would you recommend marketers go about deciding which is going to be the right fit for them?
People managing or being a hands-on practitioner?
Yeah.
I think the only way you can figure it out is by doing it, right? I've gone from being an individual contributor to a manager to an individual contributor back to a manager again. And you're just going to understand whether you like that or not. I've got friends now who are my age, mid to late 40s, and they're dead set against ever managing people because they don't want the faff of dealing with other people, to be honest, right? And having to worry about other people's performance and just come in and do their own thing. But you only gain that by experience. I love people management. It comes with the pros and the cons. Obviously, it's great when everybody's doing super well, the company's doing well, and your team's doing well. There's huge cons when that's not the case, and then you've got to deal with some of the harder sides of people management. But it's really just a case of doing it. I'd say one thing you probably could do is look at the people who you admire who are in specific roles and see, do they seem to be enjoying it? What is it they're actually doing in those roles? And does that look like something that you could imagine yourself doing or not? But really, it comes down to experience. What do you think?
I think that's good advice. I think I am, because you've ran your own business before, you've done both ends of the spectrum. You've been a practitioner, now you're a marketing leader, and you've kind of done it all. And I've done some of it in the sense that I'm always going to be biased towards start in a startup. Like that would be the best advice I could give anyone, because you're literally going to be doing a bit of everything and you're going to be under a lot of pressure. But especially if you're young or you're new to marketing, doesn't matter how old you are really, if you're breaking into B2B marketing, it's one of the best ways to learn. Like if you're getting thrown by probably the founder, because it probably is a small business, whether it's a small business or a tech startup, it doesn't really matter. But they're probably like one day like, I want you to set up a LinkedIn campaign, or I want you to help manage the profile, or I want you to make some updates to the website, or get us up and running on Google Ads. And the thing is, necessity, as cliche as it sounds, necessity is the mother of invention. And I know from my own experience, like running this business for the last year or so, that when you're against it, you make shit happen. When you have to make stuff happen, you make it happen. When you've got time or you've got other people to rely on, and you sit back. When you have to do it because no one else is going to do it, you will make it happen. You'll find a way. And those are some of the, in my opinion, the best ways to know, one, if it's right for you, but two, especially if you're new to marketing, like it's one of the best ways to see what you like, get that hands-on experience. Especially then you can make kind of some more sensible decisions once you've done that for a few years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I actually did I agree with you, but I did it the other way, right? So I joined big tech and the companies got huge and I was suddenly focusing on one little corner of one screen, and that was my entire job, right? Whereas now I'm at the other end of the scale and I'm doing everything with my team, but I'm getting that experience across the board. I think if I was to go back in time, I wouldn't relive my experience differently. It was great, and I'm happy with what I've done. But I think that person starting out in their career, I think there's a lot to be said to joining a startup or a scale up where you get to do 3, 4, 5, 6 different things. You get exposure. But also, I think, in addition to that, something that's really important, for me at least, is you are crucial to what you're doing. If you do not turn up to work tomorrow in a startup and you're a marketer, one of probably not many marketers, then the business will falter slightly. There is a direct line between Adam, junior marketing person or senior marketing person at a startup, and that startup growing and doing well, right? And that is different. And then my lived experience is actually quite different when you're working in big tech, for example, and you're doing one thing. You don't turn up tomorrow. The company going to do okay? I think the billions are still going to come in, right? And so you don't necessarily feel that really, really tight link between what you were doing in big tech and the outcome. Now, that's not to say there isn't an outcome, but the delay of seeing that outcome is quite long and often quite difficult to measure. So I think it really comes down to, as you progress in your career, thinking, what kind of marketer are you? Are you the person who needs to feel vital and crucial and know, I made this, I did this, that is me? Or are you the kind of marketer who loves the more soft skills, people side of the business, where it's more about influence and then fighting for your team and ensuring that you're being a great brand ambassador for your team internally. That comes with the politics, that comes with the negotiation, that comes with the tough conversations. If you enjoy that kind of thing, fabulous. My experience from big tech didn't really love that side of it. And I am much more at home at the direct impact side of things. So yeah, a few different dimensions to that one.
Yeah. Big fan of if you've got the ability to try both angles, and then and the thing is, because if you get, like, from the startup or small business side, if you get that hands-on experience and you feel that pressure, then not only do you have some of those hard skills, but you also have some of the mindset. But it also means if later on you do decide to work for a bigger company, be it mid-market size or enterprise, that maybe has less reliance on your own contributions, but you're more managing teams, people, etc., then you're also going to understand the folks that you are managing, like their responsibilities, and you're going to have a bit more, I guess, empathy towards what they're doing and how it works, and also not be blind to certain things, and just have a better understanding of general marketing contribution and what moves the needle, what drives pipeline, what doesn't. So I think that general experience.
There's a lot to be said, like when you become more senior or you work in a bigger company, having done the craft, right? Knowing the reality, as you say, the coalface of the people over there who are working on those campaigns or that particular thing, and knowing the ins and the outs of it. I mean, it's incredibly valuable. Just makes you more authoritative when you're talking about a specific subject when you're in that role, where it's maybe a bigger company or you're a few steps removed from it. So yeah, I agree with you.
Cool. So if someone does want to, maybe we've got some marketers that are tuning in, perhaps they're marketing execs or marketing managers or something similar, but they have aspirations to move up the ladder, maybe become director level, VP level. What should they be thinking about? What are some actionable steps they can take?
Excuse me. I think firstly it's about remembering marketing's place within an organization, right? So when you are the exec or the manager, you're typically executing things that you've been given to do. If you're running a Facebook campaign, you're thinking about number of conversions, cost per acquisition, ROAS, all of those metrics that pertain to marketing. And they're all super important, and you need to know all about them. They are the things that move the business forward. But as you're that person who wants to get to the more senior levels, you need to be thinking and connecting marketing to the business. So, when you're sitting around the table from the CFO, the COO, all the C's, right? They don't care about the impressions. They don't care about the click-through rate. They don't care about how many downloads you got. What they care about is, are you adding deals onto pipeline if you're in my kind of business? What is the ARR of those deals? What is the CAC to lifetime value ratio? What is your pipeline coverage that marketing is contributing to? Because they're the things that they have to go to talk to the board about and say, listen, we've got these things that I was just mentioning, which show that our business is in good health or actually we're struggling a little bit, right? So as you get more senior in marketing, it's less about the metrics of what you do day to day. It's more about the metrics of the business and you creating the link between the two, right? Mm. So when I think about my team, the way that I try and bring that thinking into my team is saying, we're doing a campaign, for example, that talks about, embedded finance, which is our area, and how it can help HR tech companies. I say to my team going, right, how do we think about success? And I say, well, look, there's two kind of metrics that you can think about here. There's sanity metrics and there's vanity metrics. So we think about the vanity metrics. They are the metrics that the more junior people, live and breathe and know super valuable. But they are the downloads, the views, the conversions, all those kind of things. I say, and that's great. We love those metrics as marketing. However, on the sanity side, the metrics that become much more important as you're then talking to other people outside of marketing are those business level metrics where the rubber hits the road. So we have made 20 deal stage changes. We have added 17 SQLs from our ICP and the costs around that, and then how many have gone on to actually become proper deals or contracts won. That's the language that your CEO wants to talk to you about, not the former.
Mm. Yeah, makes sense. And do you think it's a marketer's responsibility, even if it is someone that's more junior in the organisation, to start getting themselves involved in those kind of business metrics, even if it's not necessarily their role in the org right now? So maybe they've been given a certain task and they're not really given any oversight into the pipeline of the business, or the MQLs or the SQLs coming in, or what the quarterly revenue is and that kind of stuff. Should they be then speaking to senior folks and trying to get some insight into this so they can, one, understand how their contribution's piping in, but maybe think about what they can do to make progress and start making an impact on those side of things?
Yeah, I think you gave the answer in what you're saying. So absolutely you should, right? It's the cliche, but we all own our careers. We all own our own progression. You want to progress. You want to get to that next level. Where you can start is talking to your boss, who's probably having those conversations about those metrics and the business metrics and things that they care about. And just asking them how they can help you get exposure to them. Be inquisitive, have that conversation and say, bring me into those conversations. Can I help with this? The only way you're going to get exposure to them is by getting yourselves into the forums in which those numbers are talked about, right? If you keep yourself locked away to what you're doing, you're never going to progress on that. You might be really lucky and have a manager who just naturally picks you up and brings you along with you. Sometimes, unfortunately, that's not the case. So it's about, however you do it, inserting yourself into those conversations and making sure that you are able to understand how this campaign's conversions ladder up to pipeline delivery, right? There's a clear connection, but until you are part of those conversations, you don't know how to talk about it. So you have to do it.
Is there any? I don't like to use the word hacks, but I'm going to say it anyway. But you've done all sorts of marketing roles, and you've run your own business. Is there any insights that, like, pretend you were listening a few years back when you're early in the marketing career, that you'd say, look, if you actually did X, Y, Z, now knowing what I know now, you'd probably make it to where you wanted to go. Let's pretend somewhere else, like you started here, you wanted to go here. Or for younger marketers tuning in, and you could say to them, look, if you do these steps, you're going to get where you want to go like a couple of years quicker.
Yeah, maybe I could offer you one, which is always know what it is that your boss cares about and what their boss cares about. And then get very good at delivering against that, right? So if, for example, you're working on 5 different projects and there's only one of them that your boss is asking you about constantly, or the boss above them is really caring about, but yet you're spending all your time talking about the other ones, it's probably okay. But really, you've got to get very good at knowing what success looks like, what they really, really care about, and then delivering that and making sure they understand, how you've driven that success, right? I think that's one thing. So aligning yourself with the things that people really care about kind of comes back to what I was just talking about in terms of those business level metrics, being able to, there's a thumb coming up, being able to clearly demonstrate that you're thinking on the same lines as them and you know what those metrics are, and then you're delivering against those metrics for them. I think that will give you a little bit of a grease on the path for you to get you faster where you need to go.
And then to wrap things up, marketers that are perhaps as mental as you or I, that maybe don't have aspirations to move up the ladder and become an exec within their organization, but instead they want to start their own thing, they want to found and build their own business. Any recommendations on that front?
Can I say don't do it?
I'd probably say the same.
I mean, it depends, right? I've probably still got PTSD from doing my own business. You know, I didn't actually go and do a marketing business. I did a food business, right? The answer is do it, right? But let me unpack it a little bit for you. So, you know, it's interesting though, because we're talking about the number of big layoffs that are happening at the moment. I saw a stat from Biz Report that said that 13% of all of those laid off people are actually becoming entrepreneurs. And if you look at companies like Meta, and I think the other one was Amazon, and something like 1 in 3 of them at Meta are becoming entrepreneurs. 1 in 4 of them are becoming entrepreneurs.
Interesting.
Amazon. So in a way, I suppose it's probably creative destruction, right? Those people who could be entrepreneurs are actually now
given that push.
Given that push, get out the door, leave your free apple behind in the kitchen, off you go and do your own thing, right? I suppose, you know, the first question I would say to people, and it's kind of questions that I said to my Meta colleagues who would come and see my business down in London, and they say, oh, I love what you're doing here. I'd love to do that one day. And I say, why do you want to do this? Are you in big tech and you hate your job? Just quit. Just do something else. Or go on holiday and come back and then maybe start looking for something else. Starting your own business is not the answer. Why? Because you know what? Starting your business is bloody hard. I had a food business. We had 3 locations. People would come down to me and say, I love this. You know, it must be such a great lifestyle move. And I'm like, let me tell you about this lifestyle move. This business, this one shop takes in $500,000 a year. Across the business, I had 25 people to worry about, 3 locations. It's constant grind, and it's 7 days a week. It's pitching for funding 1 minute or fixing an oven the next. You're always on. You're never off. And again, this is purely because I wasn't doing a services-based business. I was doing a product-based business. So it is hard grind, you know. And my learning was at the end of the 5 years, my partner and I, we looked at each other, and I said, "I hate this. Do you?" And he said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "Well, look, COVID's here. I've done all the numbers. We're not going to be able to survive this. So I think we just need to recognize the fact that we're the right people to try and navigate this path. Let's close it and let's move on and doing it." So, you know, that's my story. But I think a few practicalities for the B2B marketer who's thinking about maybe setting up their own business is realizing that maybe you've been a generalist in your career, but guess what? When you've got your own business, my lord, are you going to be a generalist? You need to do absolutely everything. It's not just I'm going to do some marketing. You need to be able to do HR, you need to be able to do tech, you need to do legal, you need to do ops, you need to do everything. In my case, I would go from pitching investment to fixing the toilet later on that evening, right? It's all the things you're going to have to get your hands across, including P&L, cash flow modeling. That's not something you typically get your head across in a marketing role, you know? These spreadsheets that those guys over there were doing, you've got to be able to do them. And you've got to raise more money. So those numbers in those spreadsheets look better, right? And I say the last thing I'll leave you on is, that's me telling my new meetings coming up, but the last thing I'll mention is pick your co-founder wisely. If you do it by yourself, it's actually quite a lonely affair. But if you do it with somebody else, it can be a lot better, but make sure you choose the right person. I chose my husband in this case, Jace, and it was not a good move, shall we say. Living together, working together, doing a business together, you know, it was way too much, and I would never do it again. Find somebody else who's got complementary skills to you, and so that when you're coming home, also, you are not talking about work together. You do one part, they do another part, and you've got to get on and be able to do it for the long term. But I would say, you got the curiosity, and you know you're doing it for the right reasons. Absolutely do it. I don't regret it for 1 second, despite losing loads of money. You know, whatever. One life, give it a go.
I appreciate the transparency. I've been through a lot of those things in a previous business actually that I won't dive into just now, but I completely resonate with making sure you work with the right folks and not diving into it too fast. I had the fortunate experience that I worked in my last service-based agency. I was originally a seller, and then a marketer, then like a project manager, then got involved in delivery, and then eventually became a third share owner, which I should never have done in hindsight. Because like you say, if you jump into working with people that might not necessarily be the best fit for what you're trying to get out of it as an end result,
yeah, exactly,
then you're stuck in it, and it's not always a pretty ending.
Nope.
And then eventually
you've got your money in it, and how do you get your money out and walk off? It's not easy.
Yeah, exactly. So I think definitely, and like you said, you might be good at your trade now, but when you start a business, you're not just doing marketing, you're doing selling, you're doing marketing, you're eventually managing people perhaps, unless you start by your own, then you're doing finance, account, you're doing everything. You've got to keep cash flow positive, and it is a lot of work. So I'd always say, yeah, be a bit smarter than I was. Try and do, if you've got the ability to do so, do something on the side for a little bit, whether that is, if you're B2B marketing, maybe consulting or running some kind of offer, so you can, one, see if you actually like doing it, two, see if you actually make some sales, see if people actually buy your stuff, if it's got some longevity, build up some cash flow on the side so you're not going in blind, get a feel, get a taste for it before you just dive in and say, I'm going to start my own biz. Because
1,000,000%. And also I think, if you are moving into a business idea that you want to set up, and the business that you're working in is not a million miles away from what it's doing, see what you can do in the company where they're paying you right now to get around those other teams and learn the reality of what they do in ops, what do they do in tech and engineering, how does the HR team think about payroll, that kind of thing. What exposure can you get at the company you're at right now so that you can learn on your current company's dime and take that with you to your next one.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, nothing's going to gear you up fully for it, but if you can do everything you can to get ready, like you say, it makes the transition a little bit easier. Cool. Good note to end on. Appreciate the conversation, Adam. Enjoyed the chat.
Likewise. Yeah, good fun.
Please do share more about how everyone tuning in can learn from yourself, and if there's any way you want to send our audience.
As much as I moan about it sometimes, you wanna catch up and talk about anything that we've been discussing, find me at LinkedIn. Just put my name in and you'll see my bald head and my face, and you'll know it's me.
There we go. Good stuff. Well, thanks once again. Enjoyed the chat.
Likewise. Cheers, Sam. Thank you.
No worries. And as always, if you enjoyed the episode, why not head over to breakingb2b.com, hit that newsletter tab, and you can get our daily ramblings when it comes to unusual B2B marketing experiments, podcast updates, weird SEO tips, and more. That's breakingb2b.com, and hit the newsletter tab to join a few thousand marketers enjoying that one. And with that, we shall catch you on the next one. Thanks very much for tuning in.